I believe this will likely continue to smolder for a couple of days. We're still very challenged by the wind and our firefighters, as well as by the cold weather.
The investigation just beginning into the massive 3-alarm fire at Camp Small, Baltimore's wood waste collection area just off the JFX.
So to give you some perspective on the size of this fire, in this Google Earth picture from before the fire, you see all the timber that was lined up there at Camp Small like a tinder box in these dry and windy conditions. This second photo from Jerry Jackson from our media partner, the Baltimore Banner, shows firefighters still putting out hot spots today, nearly 24 hours after that fire started.
Hello, everybody. I'm Nikki Zizaza.
And I'm Denise Koch.
And I'm Rick Ritter in the Woodbury neighborhood, where what a difference 24 hours makes. This time last night, it was intense flames over my shoulder like something out of a movie. And tonight, the great news is firefighters have these flames contained, finally feel like they are in a good spot. And it has been a crazy 24 hours, not only for this area, but for the Baltimore City Fire Department, fighting a fire that Chief Wallace said is one that he has never endured in his entire career in terms of one that magnitude, with flames that were so intense, taking them hours and hours just to get under control. Now, two things. Why was that? One, this fire was at Camp Small, in a large storage area at the wood recycling plant where there are piles of trees and logs, some as high as 30 feet high. Really the perfect recipe for disaster. And that, with, as Chief Meteorologist Eric Beasley has been talking about for the past couple of days, with those gusty winds making it so hard for crews to get these flames under control. It was a traffic nightmare tonight. It is much better in this area. Northbound and southbound, though, entrances right off of West Cold Spring Lane, those remain closed. But still around here, they're telling people tonight, just avoid the area if you can, because it is still a nightmare and a headache with trying to get around. WJZ does have live team coverage on your corner tonight with Casey Baller, who has more on some of the schools that are nearby that were closed because of this fire. Mike Helgren, who's going to go into detail about Camp Small, what they do there, and again, why this fire was raging for so long. And then also Stefan Dingle, who I want to bring in now, who has much more on the timeline of all of this. Stefan, you have been out here all day, and you can take us through piece by piece and how we got to this point.
Well, Rick, we feel what the weather's like right now. Mother Nature certainly didn't do any favors for these crews that were out here, as hundreds of firefighters and different resources and personnel from around the state came in to battle this raging fire. But as I mentioned, what they also battled was those gusty winds and those bitterly cold temperatures.
Even with that raging fire that you all saw behind us last night, critical infrastructure seems to have no damage. That is a huge thing for all of us.
Huge considering the circumstances just about 24 hours earlier, where Baltimore Fire and other agencies descended to Camp Small tree recycling plant for what initially was thought to be just a brush fire.
They did encounter a large pile of logs that were on fire. It was rapidly spreading. This was a wind-driven event.
Those gusty winds only added fuel to the flames that could be seen glowing the nighttime sky during the evening rush hour along the JFX, ultimately shutting down the light rail and the highway for hours before command staff executed their game plan to contain a raging fire that could have gotten so much worse.
When I left here shortly after 1 a.m. last night, we've been making tremendous progress, and we can see that progress continues today.
So we're in the process of attempting to not only secure a ring around the fire, which I think they've done by way of just clearing ground cover, but also begin to kind of condense the pile.
Chief Wallace says now crews are bringing in heavy equipment to further contain the fire that he says will likely smolder over the next 2 days. But for the community's sake, critical infrastructure was unharmed and no one was hurt by this massive fire.
It's been a very safe operation. And I'm extraordinarily proud of my command staff and everybody, all the firefighters that were here. It was just an amazing effort.
As the fire becomes fully extinguished, we'll be working to remove the debris from Camp Small and open their operations as quickly as possible.
Now, the mayor looking forward there, as he mentioned the urgency to get the operations at Camp Small back open. Still no timeline on that right now, though. The mayor also mentioned that city crews, they have the salt trucks at the entrances of 83 that you talked about to make sure that the water they've been using to put this fire out doesn't become ice here on the roadways, which in due time will reopen a busy stretch of the roadway, Rick.
And that's a big concern with those salt trucks. Another big concern was the critical infrastructure, as you said. The fact that no evacuations had to be put into place with this fire is a miracle in itself. So there were a lot of moving parts. As the chief said, a dynamic incident that could have been much worse.
Much worse.
Stefan, thank you. And we want to continue our team coverage now with Mike Helgren, who has much more on Camp Small, what they do there at the wood recycling plant, and again, why these flames were raging on for so long. And Mike, really, we keep saying the perfect recipe for disaster between the one way in and the one way out, and then that storage area with what was inside of it. It couldn't have been much worse.
And tons of trees there, fuel for this fire. Our data team found there have been 4 fires at Camp Small since 2018. Most of them occurred during drought conditions, and getting to the bottom of the cause will not be an easy task.
That's crazy.
Deanna Jones' mother captured this video, dramatic flames lighting up the night sky as she headed to her home just around the corner from Camp Small.
It looked like the California fires. It was really huge. It was crazy.
Did you worry about your safety, that you'd have to evacuate?
Yeah, because it's so close and the wind was blowing.
She's always passed by the massive wood recycling facility, never thinking it could go up in flames.
I thought to myself, ooh, I hope that's not Camp Small. Knowing today with you here that it is heartbreaking.
Do you hope that there's some safeguards in place so that something like this doesn't happen again?
Yeah, certainly. Definitely maybe more evacuation routes. That's the only road in and out, which is terrifying because it looks like it just goes down and it's just a pocket of wood, basically.
These close-up pictures show firefighters up against the massive 30-foot high piles of logs.
With one means of ingress, egress, we had to start working our way in. We couldn't get behind it and come out. If we'd had a collapse, we'd have had people cut off. So it was a huge challenge.
Our CBS News data team found Thursday's massive blaze is not the first here. They discovered a fire on December 1st, 2018 at 3:52 a.m., a fire on September 3rd of last year at 4:28 p.m., and a fire on October 8th at 6:26 in the evening. Last year's fires happened in moderate drought conditions, and the fire Thursday happened in severe drought.
In a site like this, it would be an extensive process to be able to go through the debris and try to identify where the fire started.
Bill Koffel is a fire protection expert with the Clark School of Engineering at the University of Maryland.
Somebody would look at the various fires that have occurred and again, what lessons can be learned. Was access a problem to the site? Was access within the site a problem? Was water supply a problem? Is there a common thread in terms of how these fires have started?
WJZ got a tour of Camp Small 2 years ago. It's a unique facility run by City Rec and Parks where 9,000 tons of wood is brought annually from around Baltimore with the goal of zero waste, so old trees do not end up in landfills. Many artisans and small business owners see it as a critical resource.
We're sending so much love to them.
Mariah Palmer is the manager at B Willow in Remington and has been to Camp Small several times. Her heart broke when she heard what happened.
We were in complete shock. Of course, we love Camp Small, so it was just very unfortunate to hear. We have a beautiful philodendron here mounted on a Camp Small board.
B Willow makes it a priority to source wood for their floral creations locally, and she showed us some of what they built from Camp Small.
Magical for sure, seeing not only all the varieties of wood they have there, but seeing how it's repurposed in many ways throughout the city. But I have no doubt, knowing them, they'll come back even stronger.
And she met with Camp Small's yardmaster at her store just last weekend. She was planning to place another order. She is hopeful they can resume operations soon. But Rick, there is a lot more work to do.
Mike, great coverage, giving us a much better idea of what takes place there and again, why these flames were so intense with all of that mixed together. Again, Mike, thank you. Our team coverage now continues with Casey Ballard. I mean, we've been talking about the traffic impact for the past 24 hours that this fire has had on the Woodbury neighborhood and the surrounding area, not just here on West Cold Spring Lane, but some of the other local intersections backed up because parts of here are shut down. And with that, too, the potential concern for some of the hazardous conditions in terms of visibility with the fire was so intense and some of the smoke that was still billowing for hours today. That forced some of the nearby schools to close for the day. And Casey Ballard joins us now with much more on that. Casey, good evening.
Good evening, Rick. I mean, we're talking about schools along with businesses, and you mentioned that traffic backup. Right behind me is Falls Road. We're seeing a lot of traffic that's been backed up throughout the day because of the closure here on Cold Spring Lane. It caused a lot of people to bob and weave in, out, and just around these detours to get to work and pick up their children from school.
It smelled like burning rubber, and it was like the clouds were smoky all over.
It was an unbelievable sight for several residents.
See stuff like that in the West Coast.
The large fire that started Thursday night at Camp Small forced Baltimore Polytechnic Institute and Western High School to close for the day. Though just 4 minutes up the road, parents rushed to Medfield Heights Elementary School to pick up their children around noon after school officials decided it too should not remain open.
Because of air quality concerns in the building, city schools will be scrubbing the air in Poly, Western, and Medfield over the weekend,
causing some frustration for parents.
I would think that if the high schools with older kids let the kids out of school earlier, I don't know why the elementary school wouldn't have done the same thing.
The smoke billowing across the area impacted businesses too, like the Evergreen Veterinary Clinic.
Just even walking in this building, I could still smell a decent amount of that smoky smell.
Medical Director Dr. Danielle Anthony adds fewer clients stop by due to traffic and the smoke. Because of air quality concerns, she advises pet owners to keep their dogs, cats, even birds indoors and protected.
Limit the exercise outdoors. I mean, you can do your walk to do the bathroom, but today is not the day for the 5-mile walk around this neighborhood.
And Mayor Brandon Scott says he hopes to have Poly, Western, and Medfield back open on Monday. We also know that the Medfield Recreation Center was closed today, and Rick, they hope to have that reopened by Monday as well.
Yeah, Casey, no doubt it was the right call to close those schools today. Casey, continuing our coverage tonight, thank you. And she mentioned some of the air quality concerns, and I'll tell you what, it's not as bad as it was last night, because even last night when you were driving through this area in your car, you could smell it right through the windows. And even a couple of hours ago when we got back out here on scene, it was still a distinct smell. So not nearly as bad, but that soot is still in the air, and you definitely recognize it as soon as you walk over here. And we're about maybe 150 yards from where you can see behind us with some of that heavy equipment, heavy machinery that is in there, bulldozers and excavators, again, trying to continue to contain this fire. But officials feel like they are finally in a good spot tonight. Denise and Nikki, back to you.
All right, Rick, thank you. And stay with WJZ for complete coverage of the Camp Small fire. We'll update you as firefighters battle any hot spots and the search for the cause.